Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another one-minute video. Today we are covering the Jaws pistol. As you've seen in the intro, the inflated DPS. Yes, you will never get that DPS in PvP. The actual DPS you're gonna get is this. Yes, I'm gonna quickly go through how to get this gun. You can get this gun from buying directly from the wish machine here, or you can get this gun by clicking make a wish and just roll it from Echoes from the Rift. This gun will be available in the next scenario. If you click here, click on sign up. If you are in phase 6, and then you click on Evolution's Call. I already signed up for a difficulty hard server, but some servers will have special banners in them. So for example, if you click here, it says Void Balance, Deviant Invasion. In some other ones, it's a little bit different. Phase, Coherence, Deviant Invasion. So these ones have special mobs that will require special guns to kill them. If you go to a Void Balance, you can see that to kill a void mob, you need to get an unstable bomber damage to kill it. Which means in that scenario, or in that server, probably most likely Jaws will be in the banner. So you'll be able to click make a wish on the wish machine and you'll find Jaws pistol over here in the banner. Or same goes with the Shaman Vulture top jacket. If you click G now and click on status blueprint, this is what you will need for the Jaws pistol. That's it. You don't want to get this one. This is for gold lore, I would say. You don't want to get this one either. That's for little Jaws. You want to get this one. That. Now let's right click on the Jaws pistol, go to details, click X on I keyboard. What it does is it triggers unstable bomber damage based off your 100 PSI intensity. 100% of your PSI intensity is 902. If you were naked, you had nothing on you, then that unstable bomber damage would be 902. Quickly, swiftly, I'm gonna show you actually one thing that you need to know. Is if you shoot in the hands, the unstable bomber is gonna, do the damage depending where it explodes. So you can see we did 2,162 damage. 2,158. And if I shoot now closer to the head, we're still doing 2,151. If I shoot on the head, you can see my damage is way higher. So look at this. Hello? Thank you, game. So we did 4,000 unstable bomber damage. It heavily depends, your damage heavily depends where it procs. So if it procs on lower body, you see it's 2,624. That's your damage. That's going to be your damage. If you shoot on the body, that's going to be your unstable bomber damage. See, we're doing up to like 6k crits and stuff. But if you do a headshot, you can see that your damage is way higher. It's about 4 to 5k in normal blast damage. So it matters a lot where you shoot. You can see how the damage is very low. And your damage depends on the distance. The closer you are to the target, the more damage you'll do. The further you are from the target, the less damage you'll do. Blueprints, right click, details, go back into this gun. So after 0.1 seconds with a blast radius of 1.5 meters, the damage decays over the explosion distance. So once you trigger unstable bomber, it will explode after 0.1 second. And the further you are, less damage. And that's it. You don't need to care about this. The additional damage is blast, blah, 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 blah. Just don't look at it. This is the way the damage is calculated. There's the formula for you. PSI intensity multiplied by 1 plus status damage, elemental damage, or blast damage, unstable bomber damage. And then we have damage to normal enemies, damage to great ones, damage to elite enemies, all of that. And then lastly, it's multiplied by explosive final damage bonus. What is explosive final damage bonus, you may ask? That is right here on your mask. When unstable bomber hits only one enemy, unstable bomber final damage plus 25%. This one is what gives you giga damage, so this is very important. Now let's go through the passive of the weapon real quick. Unstable bomber is triggered every 4 shots. Now critical hits count as 1 shots for the above purpose, so your normal shot is 1 hit, but if you crit, it will count as 2 hits total. So basically a crit hit will just add plus 1 hit, if you do crit. That's all it is. So you'll just need 2 shots in total with crit to trigger unstable bomber. That's it. Then after hitting a weak spot, gain explosion damage plus 30% for 8 seconds. This is insanely... I don't know why they did that, but if you hit a weak spot, you'll just have more damage, with elemental damage. And if you click your inventory, you can see that our explode elemental damage bonus is 4.8. If I shoot on the head, go back to my inventory, it goes up by 30% right here. And after 8 seconds, it's gonna disappear. Boom, it's gone. And unstable bomber can crit and has crit rate plus 25%. What this means is that the crit 25% is a bonus to your unstable bomber, not to your bullets, to your unstable bomber. So you have a higher chance by 25% to crit in Unstable Bomber. So whenever the bomb appears, there you go. Do note, this doesn't add to your normal crit rate. It's just a Unstable Bomber crit rate bonus. These are my basic stats for PvE. Crit rate 36.7, crit damage 118%, weak spot 60%, weapon damage bonus 59.6, status damage 69.6, damage bonus against common enemies 30%. Man, that's so much. But we're wearing a PvE set, so that doesn't really matter. I never get grade one's damage bonus, dude. Never. It just gives me normal enemies, so that's all I can do, man. And then Unstable Bomber damage bonus comes from your crit. So if you have 36.7 crit, it gets converted to 0.5 damage. So let's just quickly go with the weapon we're using. You need crit rate 2 times and a fire rate plus 25%, magazine capacity plus 40%, and attack minus 15%. Rapid shot style for jaws is important. You can actually go with crit rate and crit damage if you have enough crit rate, but you can also go with 2 times crit damage. You'll just do more damage, but have less chances to crit. As you know, if you use the shaman, your crit rate is already up in like the 60s, 70s, so it would be good to use crit damage as well. Just get 2 guns, get crit rate and crit damage, and see which one does more damage. That's what I suggest. For the mod, for this gun, for PvE, we're using Reckless Bomber. And you can see for every 1% crit rate, Unstable Bomber damage is plus 0.5%. For the substats, you want to have crit damage and weapon damage and whatever damage bonus you want to use. Either grade ones or whatever. Grade ones would be the best because you'll boss mostly in this game. Elite enemies helps as well. And normal enemies also help. I mean, everything is good, but for PvP, you don't use Reckless Bomber. For PvP, we use something else. But for PvP, however, you still could use Reckless Bomber, but you'll lose a lot of damage. For accessories for the pistol, we're using Small Compensator. You could use a Tactical Flash Hider, although I tried it and my gun gets, and my gun loses a lot of recoil. It's easy to control, but the gun becomes inaccurate and the bullets bloom a lot, so I just use Small Compensator. For the optics, we use Compact Reflex Sight, Laser Sight. You could be using this laser, but again, it just removes accuracy, makes the bullets inaccurate, so you just have to control the recoil with this gun when you spam it. And then extended magazine, important. Since this gun heavily relies on PSI intensity or psi intensity, whatever you call it. I don't know how to pronounce it. But you get more psi intensity by just upgrading your armor by stars. Let me just quickly show you to you. If I click details on this armor, for example, you can see that if it's 1 star, you will get 92 PSI intensity. On 2 stars, 97, 3 stars, 101, 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars. You'll just get more PSI intensity. And obviously, if the gear is legendary, you will get even more PSI intensity. If the gear is purple, you will get less PSI. All armors have equal amounts of PSI intensity. So you can see that heavy duty 58, Frost Tactical Vest 58. And this Agent Top is 5 star. So it gives me 71. That's what you have to consider when you wear armor. Make sure you upgrade them properly and plan your armor upgrades wisely, I would say. Now let's go into what secondary gun you could use for PvE for support. Jaws doesn't really you can't really use a sniper or anything. The only other option you could use is the Gulp Lore because, I mean, it's Unstable Bomber, and since you use Jaws, since you use crit damage and elemental damage, it will benefit a little bit at the same time. So if you don't want to run like a support weapon like a crossbow or Wildfire, then you can get yourself a Gulp Lore and use that. Although Gulp Lore requires a different build, low key, so it's not going to be that efficient, but I mean, if you want a sniper, you can use this as a secondary. What I recommend though, I just use Wildfire. You mark enemies real quick like this. You just, you take your Wildfire, shoot a target, boom, 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 and then swap to Jaws, and you'll do more damage. But, yeah, that's the secondary. By the way, people ask me if you have a melee weapon or, and you put buffs on it, do the buffs stack together? No, the stats only work when you hold a gun. So if I'm holding the Jaws pistol, I get stats like max HP, weapon damage reduce, the stats that the gun has. But if I'm carrying a melee weapon, then I get stats from that melee weapon, right? Now let's go what we use for the helmet. You can use a Deviation Expert with crit damage or status damage and elemental. By the way, I advise you to have either 1 or 2 max talents with your build. If you get like 3 or 4 talents and only like 1 or 2 violent, it's not going to be great. You want to stack crit damage with this build. So this one has talents, as you can see. My mask has violent. My gloves has violent. My boots have precision. I don't have a better covered advance, so this is what I have. But you want to have either violent or talents, but no more than 2 talents. Mostly you want to have violent everywhere. You can see that on the blue mod we're using crit damage, crit rate, crit damage. And on the pants we're using a Deadshot violent. So it doesn't matter which mod you get it on, whether it's Deviation Expert, whether it's, As long as you have 2 talents and the rest are violent, that's gonna be fine. Or 1 talent and 5 violent suffixes on your mods. Now for the helmet, Deviation Expert works fine and perfect because you'll get status damage 20% and you will get fire rate for it. Either you use this for PvE or you use Fateful Strike. However, if you use Fateful Strike, you will not be able to deal weak spot damage. You will only gain 10% crit rate and crit damage plus 30%. Losing weak spot damage with Fateful Strike isn't that worth it. The only use this mod has is for Corrosion Shotgun. I cannot see myself using this Fateful Strike anywhere else, so I don't really recommend it for Jaws, as your gun will shoot slower as well. Although if you get really god tier rolls on Fateful Strike, it could work in PvP. Although for PvE, I don't recommend Fateful Strike. So it's between either Deviation Expert or Fateful Strike for PvP. Again, for the substats, you want to have elemental damage and status damage if you go with talents. And if you get violent, you want to have crit damage, weapon damage. For the gloves, we have crit amplifier violent. It has crit damage, weapon damage. And again, it's violent, so you want to go with crit damage, weapon damage. We have a crit amplifier for the gloves. And again, if it's violent, crit damage, weapon damage. For the boots, we have covered advance, precision. And there's no other option to use other than covered advance here, so that's what we're sticking with. Obviously, you don't want to have precision. I have precision just because I cannot get violent or talents, so you get violence or talents. Again, 2 talents for violent ratio. And then for the vulture top, just a blue mod. There's nothing else you can put here. You could put obviously tanky mods like this one, but like some of these mods are bugged, most of them don't work, and most of them are garbage. This is the only mod I would use for PvP, but this has terrible rolls and I cannot get a new one, so I just stick with a blue mod for more damage. And on the pants we have a Deadshot Violent. Each crit hit by non-melee weapons grants plus 5% crit damage up to 45%. You'll just keep stacking that crit damage and your weapon damage crits will be higher. Your blast damage crit hits will be higher as well. Again, if you go with violent, crit damage and weapon damage, and for PvP, you only want crit damage, weapon damage, and max HP and weapon damage reduce. That is possible, yes. Instead of the damage against elite enemies, I could be getting a max HP roll, and instead of reload speed, I could be getting a weapon damage bonus. But I'm unlucky in this game, so I'm not getting any of that. That's it for the mods. The gear that we are using for PvE is for Lone Wolf, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Bastel boots for the Jaws build, and then Shaman Vulture top is important for this, obviously. Now let's go to our PvP gear. The armor that I'm using is 3 Savior, although I don't recommend 3 Savior. You obviously want to have 4 Savior. I do not have a 4 Savior part because I've replaced the Vulture top. So for PvP, definitely 4 Savior, 1, 2, 3, and 4 here or wherever. And you just want to have 1 Shelterer to reduce your status damage against other enemies like this one. And don't look at the heavy duty shoes, just don't look at it. On the gun, we are using a heavy explosives talents. It would be better if I got a violent one, but hey, it is what it is. And what this does is Unstable Bomber inflicts stagger. What it does is just pushes enemies when you proc Unstable Bomber on them. You will get like 1 extra second to shoot them while they cannot shoot you, and it will just knock them a little bit. But again, you want to get elemental damage, status damage, weapon damage reduced for PvP. That is the most important ones. And if you get violence, you want to get crit damage and weapon damage. By the way, I think it's easier to roll weapon damage reduce on violent rather than talents. Mostly you'll get status damage reduce on talents. But that's the mod you'll be using for PvP. Obviously, if you lose a lot of damage if you don't use Reckless Bomber, which is this one that I'm using. It's not that great though, but weapon damage reduce, it's kind of good. But you could be using this if your heavy explosives isn't doing much. Although everyone uses heavy explosives for PvP, so that is the meta. I don't like Jaws, to be honest though. It doesn't do that much damage. As you saw in the PvP clip, I doing like 2k damage to the dude and he just keeps healing up while he can just tap me with a AWS or Wildfire. It's basically, Jaws is like comes in second place after AWS and Wildfire. Then for the top, we're using the same mod for PvP. I don't have a better one. And actually, you could use status enhancement if you have a really good status mod for the body piece or top piece. So you just basically want elemental damage in the first stat, and then second stat, you want status damage. If I had a better blue mod that had status damage and elemental, then I would definitely put that on instead of crit damage. But since I have just the crit damage right now, I'm sticking with this 21% crit damage total. And we're using the same mod for PvP. Basically, the mods don't change that much for PvP. The only mod you change for PvP is literally this. And I don't use Jaws, so my build isn't that optimized. I don't have like full in god rolls, crit damage and stuff on my gun, you know? If I did, our damage would be about like 20-30% better. On the wildfire, you want to have the bullseye adds vulnerability 8%, and that's literally it. You don't need anything else. You don't need calibration. All you need is this weapon mod. Now let's go to the cradle. We're using handgun enhancement, long range enhancement. Although I don't know why I have this, I don't use sniper. More like I should use this, I guess. Rapid aid. So this heals me more by savior. And I just get a cooldown for PvP. This is for PvP, by the way. And then status enhancement after hitting a weak spot, more status damage, sprint for more speed, brawl boost for less damage when getting shot at, agility for rolling, weapon damage reduce and status damage reduce. And then you want to have first round blast, which is important. After you reload, you gain 25% more damage. And that's it. Now for PvE, you want to have this. You want to have either agility, you want to have status enhancement, tactical combo, you want to have steady hand, you want to have first round blast, sprint, and then deviation master, or instead of sprinting, or actually instead of agility, you can have master tactician. And these two will help you in bossing, summon your deviation, do more damage against bosses, throw a tactical item for more damage with this perk. And then the steady hand will just give you 20% more damage in the weak spot if you use Jaws combined with the wildfire. So you mark the enemy like this and you swap to Jaws, and you'll do more damage when you shoot the enemy. Yes, steady hand works without Fortress Warfare. Please don't ask this question in the comments if it works without Fortress Warfare. Yes, it works, brother. And obviously then you can use this as well if you want. After defeating a unit you marked, weapon damage plus 25%, weak spot damage 35% lasting for 15 seconds. Basically, if you had this perk in, instead of sprint, for example, if you marked the enemy with your wildfire, boom, 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 you marked it, you killed the enemy with Jaws, you will get that buff Bounty Hunter, and you'll do more damage. Ladies and gents, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and new season is coming very soon. I will be live streaming it, so make sure to join my Discord if you don't want to miss out on my live streams. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace out.